Hello, welcome. This is Pastor Diane, and we're in Advent season. And we're going to have a few minutes of quiet time and meditation. And I'm sorry, my director's telling me that I have to keep shifting over. I think I'm okay now. So hopefully you can see the candles behind me. And I'm going to spend the next 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to have some quiet time during this reflective and waiting time of Advent season. And quiet time, we're going to listen to some music. We're going to do a bit of breathing exercises. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about spiritual practices. So I invite you now to take a few very deep, calming breaths. So in and out. And a breath for centering. In and out. And a breath for stillness. In and out. And I'm going to have a bit of nice quiet music playing for a few minutes and just relax, listen to the music, look at the candles. I invite, if you have a candle, you can light it and just enjoy and relax. Now we're going to spend, this is pretty tough sometimes, but it is a form of spiritual practice, and it's just sitting in silence. And it's to get yourself kind of in a meditative state. And when you're in silence, you have to train yourself to listen to your surroundings, even listen to your heartbeat, and you can almost get into like a zone. So we're going to do this for a minute or two. Just silence, sit, still. And I don't know about you, but I find that challenging at times. But it's interesting what moments you miss when we're so busy, and sometimes just silence is very opportunity for reflection and just kind of taking a pause. So I thought I would spend a few minutes with you this time to talk about spiritual practice. As many of you know, I'm a student minister and I'm studying what's called the diaconal ministry. And I have to do several learning circles through Center for Christian Studies. And I did one called Spiritual Practice. And I did that about a year ago. And we kind of discussed it, and then we were introduced to different processes. And one definition of spiritual practice can be a regular and intentional. Intentional is important because it's something you do specific and you do on a regular basis. It's an activity that establishes, develops, and nourishes a personal relationship with the divine, in which we allow ourselves to be transformed. Now that's one definition. If you were to Google it, you'll probably find other definitions as well. Now, there's several spiritual groups of spiritual practices. So I'm going to talk briefly about stillness practice, a generative practice, and a creative process practice. And there's different things that you can do to enhance your experience. So for example, what we just did now, we listened to some music, we had silence, I have candles behind me. If you were to have, say, some cedar or lavender, sometimes a certain scents relaxes people too and get them to a certain centering point. So I mentioned the stillness practice, and we actually are doing them at the moment. So one is looking at a candle, and it's a form of meditation. And it's literally looking at the candle, the flame, and just staring at it. Another stillness practice is silence. Then another group of spiritual practices are called generative practice. And one example, and I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Lectio Divina. And I'm going to describe it. We're not going to actually say it do it at the moment, but I'm going to describe it. So it's basically 4 sections. So you read a small section of a scripture. Ideally, at least twice. You could read it up to 4 times. Every time you read it, you pause and you try to look at the words different each time. Then you pay attention. You meditate. That's the second stage. And you ponder. You allow the words to sink in using your senses, visualization. What is the inner meaning of the text? Then you pray silently, responding to how the text affects you. And finally, you contemplate on your reflection of the scripture you just read, how it affected you. Contemplate and you rest in silence. And the whole process can take maybe roughly about 10 minutes. Another spiritual practice group is called creative process practice. And this is kind of how it describes. So it's maybe more movement. It could be dancing. It could be singing. It could be drumming. Last week I actually had a wave drum here. It has like pellets in it. And as I move it, so for me, the moving of it is a part of a spiritual practice. And then there's the sound, and it sounds like waves. Another creative process practice is called journaling. So you will be posed a question. Usually someone asks you the question, but maybe it's a question you want to ponder on. And then you have a book and you write about it. You write out with that question. You kind of let yourself think about it and explore it. So one question could be, where do you want to seek an awareness of the presence of God? So you would often write the question down in your journal. You sit with it for a few minutes and you reflect on it. If this is something that you're going to do routinely and you're serious about doing spiritual practice, I suggest that you buy a book, that you put your journaling in, and you are very intentional. Usually it even helps if you set a certain room and a certain time to do it, and you will notice a change after. I had to do an exercise last year, an assignment for my learning circle, and we had to do it for a month. And it is a very, it's a very moving experience. And you do feel a type of transformation or change in yourself. So those are just a few groups of spiritual practices, and I can discuss them again in the future. So we're going to leave this time together with me sitting in silence, and we're going to play a little bit more music. And we're just going to rest and watch the candles. Oh, just a second, please. We're having a little technical difficulty here. And maybe we won't be listening. There we go.
My name is Erica Hastings, and I live in Ottawa, Ontario. I decided to apply to the program because I already had some idea of improving.
Sorry.
Help me make them earlier.
Sorry about that. When you try to use technology and you're hitting buttons, sometimes you get a few surprises, so I apologize for that. So I hope you've enjoyed these few minutes of just winding down, centering, perhaps thinking about the divine, relaxing, and until we meet again,